Hello everyone, welcome back to the stream. Good to see you. We're going to be doing some fun stuff today. I need to finish up this new item and artifact combo that I'm putting together. So I will show you what's going on with that in just a second. But before I do that, I want to remind everyone that Alchemortis is available for wishlisting. The Steam page has been updated recently, so hope you'll check it out and let me know what you think. Also give it a wish list. You can also support the game on Patreon. If you subscribe at the top tier here for at least 1 month, I'll send you an Alchemortis Steam key when the game launches, and your name will be in the in-game Alchemortis credits. But subscribing at either tier grants you access to some exclusive videos that I've been making recently. It's also just a good way to help me out if you are so inclined. But you can also support me by purchasing one of my Udemy courses. These will teach you how to build complete games in the Godot engine. So everything's in the description below. You can also join the Discord. And what else? Yeah, I think that's it. Basically, everything's linked below. So check it out if you're interested in supporting me, and I appreciate it. We could say hello to everybody. Hello, Clickertail. Welcome back. Good morning, Malicious Rabbit. How are you doing? Boo Joe, welcome. I'm early. Good to see you. Welcome to the stream. Thank you, Bill, for the IDR 10,000. It's always appreciated and always very generous. Thank you. Yummers. Hello, Asymmetrics. Welcome. Good to see you again. Okay. So I'm in the process of making an immovable object, an immovable monolith. And this is acquired via an artifact. And what it will do is the artifact will place this immovable monolith somewhere random on your board. Add artifact monolith. So if I add the monolith artifact, I don't have the description generated yet, but I have the monolith artifact. This adds this immovable monolith. So this item is immovable. It cannot be moved from its current position. I was thinking this was going to be kind of tricky to implement, but it turns out it's actually super easy. Like I just literally can't drag it at all. I can't drag it. I can't quick sell it. I can't do anything with this. So, yeah. So that's good. And then I'm giving it some really powerful abilities to compensate for that. So the critical chance of right adjacent allied items goes up by 50%. So in this case, we've got an 80% Leviathan. And then I'm experimenting with this new type of ability. Increases the tier of allied items by 3. Well, that's wrong. That description is wrong. It needs to say left adjacent allied items, but increase the tier of allied items by 3. The tier applied can exceed the affected item's maximum tier. So now I've got another ability which can increase the tier of an item beyond the cap by 3. So the idea here is that the immovable monolith is going to be a pretty big penalty because it's just going to be like this thing that's permanently in your board and like you have to build around it. But the idea is that it will have powerful enough abilities where it may be worth it to take that hit of basically having this thing that breaks up your board in a way that is not easy to work around, but also offers pretty powerful abilities in exchange. Hello, Limps. If I'm new to game dev or programming in general, is it better to stick to GDScript or straight to C#? I think GDScript is fine. C# has a lot of extra concepts at play. Well, not necessarily extra concepts, but well, maybe that is the right thing to say. Like, you can't... I'm trying to think of what I want to say. There are just a lot of extra things that add to the learning curve. If you're starting from nothing, if you're starting from no experience, and you're trying to learn programming and game development at the same time, I think C# is just going to add a little bit of an extra difficulty curve than GDScript, just because C#, you know, it's a compiled language, so you got to do you got to work with the type system correctly, which means you got to learn how the type system works, which means you got to learn what types are. And then there's the whole extra side of setting up the development environment for it and getting the right SDK, the .NET SDK installed, and just all that stuff can add to the learning curve. I'm not saying it's not doable. Obviously, it's doable, but I think you want to keep the learning curve as not steep as possible when you start. Only know the basics of Python. Okay, I think you'll be fine with GDScript. I would stick with GDScript to start. And then once you're comfortable with that, you can look into C# when you're ready for it. Hello, Tan Talking. Monolith, yes. Have you ever been out at a bar and a girl came up? Okay, stop right there, because no. Nope. That's never happened, so we don't need to read the rest. All right. Anyway, and said, hey, do you know GDScript? Not likely. Right. Immovable Monolith versus Unstoppable Force. Which one wins? The trick, the resolution to that is that is a logically incoherent statement. So it's not a valid question. That's like asking, what would a triangle be like if it had 4 sides? Just a logical incoherence. So there's the solution. Not valid question. Next. Anyway, let's see. The triangle goes into the square hole. I don't know why I've been thinking of Idiocracy lately, but I don't know. That movie has been popping into my head recently. Maybe it's time for another watch. The only thing I know is that C# is better for like bigger games. No, I don't even know if I would say that. Like whether the language is better or not for the type of game you're making, it entirely depends on like what you and your team's needs are, right? So like the language, just like the engine, is a tool. It's either going to offer the kinds of things that are going to make your life easier, or it's going to offer the kinds of things that are going to make your life harder. So I wouldn't shoehorn yourself into like choosing a language just because it's like, oh, well, this is better for big games. It's like, it depends on like I said, what is your need? What are you comfortable with? What are you proficient with, right? If you're very proficient with GDScript and not proficient with C#, you may make the decision to say, well, it's just going to be easier for me to build large swaths of the game with GDScript than C#, right? So I would say that for me personally, yes, C# is a better choice for making games that have more complexity, because I think in C# it's easier to manage that complexity with abstractions that C# offers, like interfaces and abstract classes and all that stuff. But I wouldn't say it's like strictly better. I think it's just a matter of what you're comfortable with. My son hates that video, yeah. Good morning, Ninja Link. Good morning, good morning. Honestly, though, the biggest thing is to avoid analysis paralysis and just get started making. Pick one and go. You can always try the other one later. Yeah, I think that's true. Choosing the language is hardly relevant when writing a novel. Right. Picking the perfect engine, perfect language, perfect game idea is all just going to stop you from making anything. Yeah, that's true. That is true. Okay, to answer your question, Ninja Link, you were asking what happens if the immovable monolith, what happens if your board is full. So I have a couple of ideas. So we're working on this artifact. I'll show it again. Add artifact monolith. It added it in the same spot. That's bizarre. Okay, let's just do it again. Add artifact. So upon acquisition, wow, it's really not going to put it like in the middle of the board somewhere. Okay. Anyway, so upon acquisition, it adds this to a random free space. So I thought this would be clever for a couple reasons. One, if you happen to have free space on your board and you just absentmindedly click that, that's going to kind of like mess you up a little bit. But also, because it's going to choose a random free space, you may be able to engineer your board ahead of time to get that exactly where you want it by filling in all the other spaces. Oh, I was trying to move that. I can't move that one. And then there's a third option we could do, which is that what if the board is full? Right now, if the board is full, it just silently fails. It just doesn't do anything. But what I could do is I could make it so that way, if it can't place the item initially because of free space, it could listen for the next time a free space is available on your board and then put it there immediately and just kind of like mess you up. So if you take it and you're like, oh, nothing happened, whatever, and then you go to rework your board and you go, oh, I'm gonna put this over here for a second, and then boom, it just appears right there. You're like, oh no. I think that could be fun too, but anyway, we'll see. Okay, I don't know. This is one of those. Is one goes said, go curiosity grow and make good later. Well said, it's not Bill. So right now, I had to set up like a dozen classes to make this one ability work. That might be an exaggeration, but this ability here is the tier increase, which increases the tier of a left adjacent item by 3. And the tier that is applied can exceed the cap. So there's something wrong with this still. I don't know, it was kind of late last night when I stopped working on it, so I don't remember exactly what was happening, but add artifact monolith. Okay, so I put this here. So that increases the tier by 3. The tier is showing up correctly there. It's not showing up correctly in the tooltip. If I move this away, the tier is correct, but the tier indicators are not. Why waste time say lot word when few word do trick? There you go. So it seems to be working from a data perspective. So you can see that this says apply 1 fire. I put it here, it applies 4 fire. The tier here is correct, the tier indicator there. So I wonder if my tier indicators just never... I wonder if they were just never built to support the case where... No, it should support the case where the tier goes down. Let me go to my base card here. Let me see. If additional tiers is not equal to 0. Oh, did I put this in the wrong spot? No, that's correct. Here. If additional tiers is not equal to 0, update tier. Oh, right. I was just doing this in the wrong order. So we capture if it was not 0 before, we set it back to 0, we update the tier here. Okay. Add artifact monolith. Okay, we put the candle here, we move it out. Okay. So now that tier is being changed. So really the only place now where it's not updated is in the tooltip. So we'll fix the tooltip. And let me just make sure that this is indeed going to apply 4 fire. I mean, it should, because like all of that stuff is powered by the effective tier, but yeah, that's applying 4 fire now. Okay, awesome. So the idea here is we give the monolith very powerful abilities in all the directions. And then it should be pretty good. this needs to be card.tier. Okay. I was related to art stuff. I forgot what the specific words they said exactly. My bad. Let's see. Add artifact monolith. Okay, so I put this here, and the tier is updated in the tooltip now. Okay, so now the last thing that I need to do for this ability in particular is I need to add the left adjacent support to this toQuery string. So I've got left adjacent here, toQuery string template. If query directions dot has flag, query directions dot left adjacent, build that. Then build the translations. I've got extensions to restart. I guess we'll do that. Increases the tier of left adjacent allied items by 1. What? Okay, so that works. I don't even know if I need to go into the game and test it, but we'll do that. Alrighty. Should really just add this as a test artifact. Increases the tier of left adjacent allied items by 3. The tier applied can exceed the affected item's maximum tier. Sweet. And so this is the only... Oh, wait. Oh, no. We have a quick move possibility. I'm going to need to fix that. All right. Well, that's good that I figured that out. Shoot. I guess it's not going to be as easy as I thought it would. Now, wait a minute. Why is that happening? Enable test player artifacts, monolith. All right, we're gonna have to work on the board displacement, I guess. Interesting. Okay, I've got some errors happening here. What happened here? Oh wait, now it's not. Oh. Oh, that's bizarre. Uh-oh, we got something very broken here. Well, it looks like we're going to be going on an adventure. Did that just add it to the same spot? It did. Oh gosh, there's something real broken here. So I think there's probably something wrong with this on acquired. So monolith on acquired, where is this called? We're gonna have to go on a little bit of an adventure through the code base, I think. That's okay. All right, let me just write down these issues before I go on. So I fixed that one. When Monolith is present as test player artifact, Immovable Monolith is not placed correctly. And then dragging cards over Immovable Monolith applies displacement to it. Okay, so we need to fix those two things. The first one is, let's figure out why the Monolith on acquired is not quite working. So this on acquired, when does this happen? Let's just find all implementations. Really? Okay. I think something's wrong. What in the heck? How did I just put Relk in an AI chat? I don't know. What is going on? The machines are becoming alive. Okay. Can I do this now? There we go. We have another extension restart. Okay, can I work on this now? Okay. So base artifact on acquired is called an artifact manager add artifact. This is happening in the run save manager load player artifacts. Okay, I see. So maybe it's a good idea. Let me think. Load character. Load alchemy. It's probably a good idea to load the player board and the inventory board first. So I think this probably makes the most sense. I don't think the run statistics are important to load first, but maybe I'll move this down. Okay. So we load the run first, we load the combat board, we load the inventory board, and then we load... Right, okay. Okay. Let's see if that fixes that at least. I think it was just kind of like an order of operations issue. I don't think the board was fully set up before it did that. So I can't drag this, and I can't place an item on top of it. Okay, so that fixes that issue. Now we got to figure out the displacement here. Now, I'm actually curious because I saw those errors being printed when I dragged a card over an enemy board as well. So I don't know. I'm trying to think, did I ever... I don't know where those issues came from. Okay, well, the displacement is working for non-player boards. So let's go to the card displacement. I think it's called, where is it at? Yeah, here, board placement state, apply displacement. So I think what I probably want to do is I probably want to How is it filtering out boards where it applies the displacement? I'm not actually seeing that anywhere. Apply displacement. Because displacement should only be available for boards. Displacement should only be applied for boards that are owned by the player. Get overlapping cards. No, I'm going to put a breakpoint here because I'm a little bit confused. I don't see anywhere where this applied displacement is being filtered to only the boards that can receive sort of like changes. Interesting. So it isn't applying displacement for boards that are not owned by the player. Get mouse over board. Mouse over board. Interesting. Get mouse overboard. Oh, is board placement locked? Oh, I see. This is where it's being filtered. So get mouse overboard returns only the list of boards which don't have placement locks. So that makes sense. Okay, so I figured that out. In here, I think what I need to do is, since some cards are not... Some cards could be immovable now. I think cards that displace in queue placement succeeded is equal to not current card dot is immovable. So what I'll do is, instead of modifying this, I will just say, I will just mark the placement success as false automatically if the card is immovable. And hopefully that one extra parameter or one extra check will prevent that card specifically from being moved during the displacement. Bugs, the moment you find one, you find a whole family, yeah. Okay, so that seems to be working. Okay, all right. I think we're good. Very cool. That also was easier than I thought it was going to be. Okay, so now this is truly immovable. I can't do anything about this. And I can't quick sell it. Don't worry, I checked. So I can quick sell these ones, but I can't quick sell that one. Basically, this is just locked in place until the end of your run. Okay. I think we're good. I thought that I had... Yeah, I've got a to-do here that I want to address as part of this work as well. So we'll just pin that so I don't forget. Okay. What is this LS cache? This file caches language service data to improve the performance of C# dev kit. It is not intended for manual editing. For more information, see this. I don't know, do you want to go down this adventure here? LS cache files are lightweight caches that store project metadata. They allow C# dev kit and potentially other clients to skip expensive processing on startup, providing near instant project loading. Oh, that sounds good. 70% reduction in startup time. Significant memory reductions. I got 64 gigs of RAM, which is basically like $5,000 today, so I think my computer has appreciated in value since I bought it, which is kind of weird. But anyway, I guess I'll just add that to my git ignore. Okay, so we'll just ignore ls cache. Okay. All right. I left that message on the screen for far too long. OG1 is unfound, yeah. Hello, Mel's, welcome. Back in my hole to lurk. Have a significantly better than okay day, everyone. Not great, but definitely not better than meh. All right, thanks, Asymmetrics. Thanks for stopping by. Hello, Simon William Taylor, welcome. Good afternoon. Great content. Thank you, Jim Skin Clips. Welcome. I've got a question for you. I've seen your video stop using nodes for everything in Godot. Since Godot is mostly node-oriented, how do you suggest it should be used? So, admittedly, that title was mostly just a clickbait title. I mean, it's not clickbait. It's a provocative title designed to draw attention, right? But I'm not saying that you should bypass nodes every time you need to use them, because that's just not how you're supposed to work with Godot, and it's certainly not how I'm working with Godot. What that video was designed is just to give you an introduction to a different system you can use specifically for display of textures and materials and all that, in the event that you would otherwise have to use a lot of nodes, and that would be not performant. So for example, a bullet hell, like the first place that I found out about using the rendering server was various bullet hell posts about how there was a specific blog post actually that I saw. Maybe I'll link it, but basically creating a bullet hell with hundreds or thousands of bullets on screen would have made a significant impact on the performance if those were all built as nodes. And so what this blogger did, or what this blog post described, is switching all the bullets to use the physics and the rendering server so that hundreds or thousands of bullets could be instantiated without a noticeable performance hit. And I'm going to see if I can find that actually. Did I delete that? Let me see. Oh, here we go. Come on, Kat, do you have to do this? So I'll post this link if you want to read up on it. But this is how to drawing a metric ton of bullets in Godot. So I'll put this in the chat if you want to check it out. But basically, this is like one of the first posts I saw about the rendering server. And it's basically a bullet hell game where they're trying to render a bunch of bullets. So yeah, there's just a little bit of a... Yeah, so here's an example. So they implemented the bullet as a series of nodes to start, and then after a few seconds of runtime of spawning a bullet every 0.1 seconds, the frames dropped dramatically. Now, I guess this is less of a instantiation problem and more of a how many entities need to be processed per frame problem. But yeah, they kind of have the same problem that I was having. So anyway, it's a good read. It goes over how they use the rendering and physics servers to implement all that stuff. So yeah, that's I don't even remember what the original question is, but how would you suggest it should be used? Yeah, for like bullet hells and for other specific cases where specifically creating lots of scenes or lots of visuals is a problem, that's when I would use it. It's not clickbait. Proceeds to define clickbait, yeah. I really do need to run. Hello, Chris. Hello, EXO. When is the game coming out? Later this year. Don't have an exact date, but it'll be out this year for sure. Regular human bartender. Hello, Mark. It's going well. How are you doing? I would check Arch library for C# Godot bullet hells. Okay, what was I doing? All right, so we need to add some more abilities to the monolith here. It's an ECS manager. Interesting. All right, so we need 2 more abilities. We need an ability for top adjacent and bottom adjacent. And it should be something somewhat powerful. I mean, I could do the critical multiplier for one direction. Let's do that. So base crit multiplier increase. This will be bottom adjacent. Oh, I don't have... Okay. If query directions dot has flag. Oh, I have bottom adjacent already. So we should be good. So let's see how this works. That Arch library is pretty good. I had my first weird Godot thing. Exported my game and an export variable broke. Had to remove the Godot folder and rebuild, and it magically fixed itself. Figured I'd mention in case it's useful to anyone else. Yeah, sometimes that can happen. I don't know why that happens, but... Okay. All right. Unfortunately, it did not place the monolith in a proper spot. But that's okay. There we go. increases the critical multiplier of allied items directly below by 100%. That's not correct, but we'll change that. Yeah, so 2.5x, so it goes up by 1x. So this would be 0.0x magnitude base critical multiplier increase divided by 100. Try that again. It's not a Godot game, but Mushy Himasama actually had to spend quite a lot of upgrades to find a device that could render thousands of bullets at a time. Oh, interesting. How do you look for sounds? When I try to find something online, it's usually just a bunch of junk that can't be used in any context. I use the GDC audio bundles. And then let me just do this. So I use the GDC audio bundles, which basically I don't really look for sounds anywhere else. Like I just use what's in the GDC audio bundles. Actually, speaking of, yeah, I muted that. Okay. So I have, well, if you believe this number, so I'm using this app called Asset Hoard as well. I know this is not maybe exactly what you're looking for, but so the GDC Sonus audio bundles, SONNISS, that's like over 100 gigabytes of sound effects that are free to use in unlimited commercial projects. And if you get all the bundles and you believe this, there's 170,000 sound effects. So that number there, but I've been using this Asset Hoard app to preview sounds because you can just like see them all in a good list and then you can just play them, which I won't do right now. But the cool thing about this app too is that it has semantic search. So it doesn't just search the name of the file when you do a search. There's some other thing happening under the hood where it will pull in other things that aren't necessarily related or don't have a file name related to your search term. Yeah, so for example, oh, that one has water in it. I don't know. I was observing this yesterday, but maybe that's not. Maybe it is just looking at more of the metadata and searching for the search term. But anyway, it claims to have this semantic search where you can search for stuff and it will try to find the meaning of what you're searching and return results based on that. Don't know how it works. Maybe it doesn't work that well for sound effects. Yeah. Anyway, it's a pretty neat app though. What? Why does that not work? Oh, I forgot to build the translations, right? Gotta remember to do that step. Hello, Alien Archer. I'm passing through your course. There's a lot of knowledge to get from it. Do you have any advice how to learn everything? Learn by heart, perhaps? I think the best way to learn is like to get an introduction to whatever you're trying to learn through a tutorial or a course or whatever. But then the best way to do it beyond that is to just try to do things on your own. Like just try to go through and build things and learn as you go. Get stuck on problems, you solve those problems. Just try to figure things out on your own after you've gotten acclimated to like what's available to you in Godot. And it's, you know, I guess you could say you learn it by heart, but it's more so like it just becomes a natural natural thing to do once you've done enough building games or working with Godot. You start to get a feel for like how things go and how you're supposed to do things, and then you get to a point ultimately where you don't really need to look at external resources to build your own scenes and gameplay logic and everything. Just because you know all the tools that are available to you and you know how to use them all, but you only get to that level of knowledge by, like I said, doing things on your own without somebody telling you how to do something. I think that's how you make the most progress when you learn. Can I cut them in the program? No, you have to use a separate program for editing the sound effects. Okay. All right, so we need one more ability for the Immovable Monolith here. The top adjacent ability. I guess we could just do a turn cooldown reduction. Var turn cooldown is equal to new late non-combat composed ability. How am I doing it in the giant mushroom? Turn cooldown override. Query target provider. Let's just do this. Sets the cooldown of equal. So let's do 2. Description utils.time format 1 seconds. Hard immovable monolith cooldown override. Description utils.magnitude to seconds. A base turn cooldown. Okay. You should give the enemies an unstoppable monolith. Yeah. Okay. Oh, I gotta build this. All right, sets the cooldown of allied items above to 5.0 seconds. So I need to do directly above. I'm going to change this, I think. Bottom adjacent. This would be prefix equals bottom adjacent. Okay, I hope that doesn't break anything. Let's build. I will see what changes in the translation file as a result of that. Okay, build. Adds an ability slot to bottom adjacent allied items. That makes sense. Sets the cooldown of top adjacent allied items to 1 second. Increase the critical multiplier of bottom adjacent allied items. I think that makes sense. We'll just preserve the language there. All right, let's see if it works. Hello, Woowius. Welcome back. Good to see you. Sets the cooldown on top adjacent allied items to 5 seconds. So if I put this here and I put that there, now it's got a 5-second turn cooldown. Nice. Oh, I died. Cool. Alrighty. All right, so there's one critical question left to address here. Let me think. Yeah, we'll go over that critical question in just a second, but I am going to take a quick 3-minute break and get a refill of my coffee. I encourage you to do the same. And when I come back, we'll go over the critical question. And then I also I want to address this to-do as well. I think that's going to make the game code a little bit clearer. So I'll be right back in just 3 minutes and we'll continue on. All right, I'm back. Hello, Wuius. The monolith can't be moved at all, right? That's correct. Not on the board and not away from the board. What else does it do? So in exchange for being an immovable setup on your board, here's all the things that it does. So it's got an innate passive, which makes it immovable. But for the right adjacent item, it increases the critical chance by 50%. For the bottom adjacent item, it increases the multiplier by 1x. For the left adjacent item, it increases the tier of the item by 3, which can exceed the cap. So you could have a tier 5 item, put it on the left, and it becomes tier 8. And then the other one is it sets the cooldown of a top adjacent allied item to 5 seconds. So this one is particularly designed, for example, if you've got add item skeleton dragon. So skeleton dragon has an 11-second cooldown. So you could just slap that there and boom, like you've got a 5-second turn cooldown skeleton dragon now, right? So I think that it is actually, it's probably more powerful than the downside. So in other words, I think that the downside is disproportionate in its downside compared to the upside. But since it is randomly placed, you may not get to use a lot of these things, right? But if you're lucky, you know, you could take, for example, add item rat. You could take a rat and you could get the bonus of both the top or the bottom and the right at the same time. So you see that this has a 0% crit chance, 1.5x multiplier. But if I put it here, the multiplier went up by 1 and the crit chance went up to 50%. So you could definitely do something like this and get the same bonus or get both bonuses on the same card. You could also do like the add item infusion altar. And you could get 3 of those bonuses, right? So this gets the tier, the crit chance, and the multiplier. So yeah, I think that there's some interesting options here. I'm hoping that that's powerful enough to make it an attractive choice in some cases. What happens if a monolith is next to a monolith? That is a good question. Basically nothing would happen. Since these are all passive abilities that just change like the numbers and stats, I don't think anything would actually happen. Anything interesting would happen. How does one get the monolith? Could you purposefully leave one spot empty to force a monolith into a certain location? Yes, you can. The monolith is acquired through an artifact. So there's a monolith artifact that places an immovable monolith on your board. That will be placed when you acquire the artifact. So if you're at the artifact selection screen and you see this one, you're like, ooh, I want that one. You can definitely arrange your board such that there's only one free space, and it will place the card there. So you definitely have control over it. This kind of goes into my critical question, which is that there is a situation where you don't get that item, which is when your board is full, right? And so we can decide what to do in that case. So if I do this, if my board is full and then I do add artifact monolith, nothing happens, right? Because like the board is full, so nothing gets placed. So we can either make it do nothing, or we can make it so that if it cannot place the item immediately, it waits until it detects an open space in your board, and then it places it there. Now, I could go either way on it, right? I could see a situation where, you know, if the player doesn't make room on their board, then they just lose out on the immovable monolith. I could also see the situation where the player takes it, nothing happens, and they go, okay. And then later down the line, maybe 2 combats later, they start moving stuff around. They place it, and then boom, the monolith appears right where they just moved a card out of. And now it's like, oh shoot, like that was an unexpected turn of events because I wasn't paying attention, right? So does anyone have any opinions on that? An O-shaped card with a hole in the middle would be amazing with it. Yeah, it would, yeah. Hello, Lududemeister. Can I ask how you manage the effect, white lines circling icons? So the basic idea is that you take an outline shader, but you only show a certain segment of the outline by using like a radial check. So you do a radial check from the center of the texture, and then you say, okay, don't do any outline pixels that are outside of that arc, essentially. And then you just rotate the arc with a shader progress value, right? So I think it's like, in this case, it's like a 15-degree arc that is controlled by a shader uniform that changes the angle of the arc. And so you just rotate the arc around the image, and that's it. That's the gist of it. I'm sure if I went into the shader code, I wouldn't be able to like go line by line and explain what each line is doing, but that's the gist of the idea behind the shader. I've kind of liked the waiting approach, or it actually replaces the item and puts that item back into the inventory. The problem is, like, it's still the same problem, right? It's like, what happens if there's no space in the inventory then, right? Like, I can't assume ever in this game that there will ever be any free spaces anywhere, right? So that is something that I have to keep at the top of my mind. You're welcome. You're welcome. All right, let's make it wait then. So if it fails, so let's see. And I also have to save the initialized state. So let me think about this. Artifact manager. So this is going to be a little bit tricky because I can't just listen for a card being removed from the board, because that happens when you start dragging. And so you could imagine a situation where, like, dragging is kind of like a pending state, right? Like nothing has been finalized. So while I'm dragging something, the board state is changing under the hood, but it's not really a finalized state change, right? Because I could, for example, fail the drop and then the initial state needs to be restored. The problem, though, is that the Leviathan is actually being removed from the board when I drag it. This is not just a visual effect, it's actually being removed from the board data. And that's because the other cards need to be able to displace into the old position where the Leviathan was. But if I fail the drop, it needs to go back to its original position. So if I just listened for whenever a card is removed from the board and then said, okay, now put the immovable monolith in there, I could actually end up in a soft locked state, or a very bad state where like this drop fails and now there's like an immovable monolith stacked on top of like the Leviathan in some way. So that could break the game, and I don't want to do that. So one safe check to do is to check when cards are transferred. So a card transferred event or signal happens when a card has moved from one inventory to another. And that represents like a final state change. The problem with that, though, is that I could just make room on this board and none of those card transfer signals are going to be firing. So this is actually going to be a little bit tricky. I think what I have to do probably is listen for... Let me think about this. Maybe just the general board state updated. Emit signal board state updated. That's try place card at position, set board dimensions. So card removed is actually... Maybe just look for the remove card, but also check if it's... if things are not being dragged, I think. Let's see. Would that work? Maybe that would be okay. I'm gonna rename this is card placed. Okay, let's grab this, place card at random position, and I'll pass along a reference to the player board. We'll do try place card at random position. Okay, and we'll just do if is card placed return. So we won't be able to call it multiple times. Okay. So if that's not going to work, is it? Let's make this bool. We can just return out of that, actually. Okay, and then we can do if not try place card at random position. What we should be able to do is we should be able to do player board dot board inventory component dot connect to card removed. We'll just add this to the context helper. If mouse events manager equals null or mouse events manager, how do I get, man? So if we're dragging when the card gets removed, I hope that works. Yeah, so it removes the card after the drag data is created, which means that the dragging state is entered before the card is removed. So as soon as that card is removed here, wherever that was, begin drag, as soon as the card is removed here, that signal is ultimately going to call this signal handler, and then the dragging should be true by this point. We're probably also going to want to do connect to card placed as well. The other tricky thing I need to keep in mind is like the board growth events, because the board growth events will increase the board size. But I think it will also replace a bunch of cards. So let me think about this. Maybe I don't want to do this. I wonder if I should just connect to board state updated. Maybe that would be better. But I'm going to need to queue sort of like a deferred check to make sure that everything is finished and finalized. Okay, let's just do this. Private bool is update queued. If is update queued, we'll just return is update queued equals true. Callable dot from. If mouse events manager equals null or mouse events manager dot is dragging return. Oh, we do want to say is update queued equals false here. Call deferred there. If try place card at random position, get player board. I might move this check into here as well. Player board at board inventory component to disconnect from board state updated on board state updated. Yeah. Okay. Is that going to work? Do I have my logic correct? So on acquired, if we've already placed the card, we'll return. This is mostly for loading from the save. So this on acquired gets fired when we're restoring a save. But if the card was already placed in the previous instance of the game running, we don't want to do anything. So that returns there. Otherwise, we're going to get the player board. We're going to try to place the card at a random position. This will fail if either the card is already placed, the player board is null, or the free cells.count equals 0. And then if all of those checks pass, the final check is it will try to place the card at the position, which will either succeed or fail. If that fails, ultimately, if this whole thing fails ultimately, we're going to connect to the onboard state updated of the board inventory component. So whenever the board state is updated as a result of resizing the board or changing the cards on the board or whatever, we're going to queue an update. We're only going to listen for one signal max because that signal could be fired multiple times in a single frame. And then we're going to do this in a deferred manner to make sure that the board state has been completely updated before we do anything. And then we'll switch that flag to off, and we basically do the same checks here. And if it exceeds this time, we disconnect from that signal so it doesn't get listened to again. I think that will work. Let's turn the player board dimensions down to 2, 2. Okay. Hello, Dev Mad Fury. Welcome. It's going well. Nice gothic font there. Very cool. Hello, Walter. What's your name anyway? I'm Jacob. I'm Firebelly, aka Jacob. Oh. Jeez. Hello, David Martinez, Leon Rune. Welcome, welcome. Okay. So let's see. So let's add item. What is a 2x2 card? Jewel. So I put this here. Add artifact, monolith. Drag this. That's not doing anything. I put this here and boom, it didn't work. Oh, now it worked. So it just doesn't work when I transfer. Okay. I might need to connect to both signals then. I'm trying to think if there's a more straightforward way I can do this. So board state updated is not... Oh, it's not fired on typical drag and drop. Why not? I mean, it is. It's just... Right, okay. So the problem is, like I mentioned earlier, when I start a drag and drop operation, the board state is actually updated when I start dragging the item. The problem is that the board state update is not fired again for that board when I transfer it to another board. connect to drag began, or no, drag ended. Q card placement attempt. Q card placement attempt. Private void. I have to be really careful about this because I don't want to end up in a bad state where like the player gets soft locked. So I just have to be very cautious about how I'm doing this update, but I think that this is going to be okay. So put the jewel here, add artifact monolith. Okay, so if I take this out and I drop this here, boom, we got the immovable monolith placed there. Okay. Let me just restart, I suppose. Add item jewel. Okay. So now let's try this. Add artifact monolith. If I move this over here, that also works. Okay. Now let's try the board growth. I'm kind of curious about that one. Event type. Grow board is 5. Generate test map with type 5. Add item jewel. Add artifact monolith. Okay, so what I'm hoping this will do is if I grow the board in any direction, it will put the monolith item there. Oh, nice. Okay, I'm pretty confident that this is going to work now. Oh, I need to do... Mouse Events Manager disconnect from drag ended. On drag ended, okay. This is card placed as not correct. I need to remove that. Try place card at position. Is card placed equals true, return false. Okay, so we only want to mark this as placed as soon as it gets placed. I'm glad I reviewed that because that was incorrect. All right, so now let's just try a basic... We'll just try a basic save system. So we're going to turn off ignore save file. I'm going to clear my save data. We'll go in here. I will go ahead and add, let's do this, add item jewel. Okay, here. And then add artifact monolith. Okay. So now we'll do this. That puts the immovable monolith there. I can close the game. I can go back. Open this up, and it didn't save my artifacts. What the heck? Oh, I think it's because I'm generating a test map. Oops. I don't think it saves the save file when I'm generating a test map. All right, let's try it again. Let's just make sure the save is working this time. Okay, all right. So put this here. Monolith. It put that there. Close this. Reopen the game. Why is it not restoring my artifacts? Oh, because I have, right, I know why. It's another setting I have. Turn off test player artifacts. Okay, let's just do add item rat. Put this here. Add artifact monolith. Okay. Oh, I wonder if it doesn't save. It maybe doesn't save when I add an artifact. Let's just restart the game. We'll see what happens. It's not loading my artifacts. What the heck, man? Probably a result of that change that I made in the run save manager. Why is this not working? Oh boy, why is it not saving my artifacts? Minion crit chance. Add the monolith artifact. Trigger a save. Now it's not saving. What? Oh, I'm in the wrong spot. Okay, it did save. Now we reload. Dang it, I was not expecting this to happen. I don't know what's going on here. Okay. Clear save data. Why is it not saving my... It's saving everything else, not my artifacts, though. Run save model is null. That makes sense. Okay. We're just going to add the jewel here. Then we're going to add artifact. Okay. So I close the game, launch again. Run save model. artifacts, entries is still, it's not saving my artifacts. Why is it not saving my artifacts? What? All right, let's see. It has the monolith in here. Okay, so is it not... what? What the heck? Okay. So it's in my save file. It's saving my cards, but it's not restoring my artifact state. Why is it not restoring my artifact state? Oh, those are new unlocks. I don't know what's going on here. Artifact save model entries. Where's this set? I think, let me think. Why is that happening? I think the order, maybe the order I had before was necessary, but that shouldn't be the case. It's still not saving it. What? It's got the card here, but it's not saving the artifact. Gather artifacts. Is this just not working? Did I attach to the wrong process? Okay, we'll just disconnect. In my opinion, most of the time programming isn't hard, it's just boring. It's usually tedious but not very difficult, isn't that right? I think so. I mean, I think what you find tedious, it's going to vary by person. I honestly, my opinion is that everything, no matter how much you enjoy it, is going to have parts that are tedious, you know? Like, I'm sure fine artists, when they're painting masterpieces, there are parts of the painting where they're just like, oh, this freaking sucks, man. I don't want to do this. I don't want to draw this mountain. I don't want to paint this mountain. I've done a mountain a million times before. So programming can be tedious, especially when you're doing a lot of boilerplate stuff. But I generally find that maybe it's not the programming itself that is super interesting in a lot of cases, but the problem you're trying to solve is usually pretty interesting, and that's really like where the enjoyment of programming comes from. It's not like I enjoy just like writing the code. It's more so that I enjoy solving the problem which the code is being used to solve, right? So it's like it's more about the problem and less about like the tool that I'm using to solve the problem. So anyway, I don't remember if we talked about this before, but why did you stick with C# instead of GDScript? Was it because of interfaces? Yeah, it was basically that. Yeah, I think GDScript just lacks a lot of the things that C# has that makes a game like Alchemortis easier to make. So that's basically it. First time I've noticed you having any problems, yeah. Sometimes you get these bugs where it's like, what the heck is going on? I think I have an order of operations issue because earlier on in the stream, I moved the load player artifacts below the load of combat board inventory board. And so I'm wondering if there is, I mean, my suspicion is that when I first load the game, this load combat board and load inventory board are triggering a save which clobbers the artifacts. And then because there are no artifacts, it initializes the default artifacts for that character. Because basically the way the save system works is that anytime a board state changes and it's in a savable state, it saves the save file. So I think it's an order of operations issue. So if I were to do add artifact monolith and then force a save, oh, that's not actually working at all. What in the heck? Really? Oh. The save has two distinct modes. Interesting. So when I'm only moving cards around, the only thing that it saves is the board state. But when I enter the map idle state, that's when it saves all of the everything, including the artifacts. So now my artifact should be saved. If I go to my alchemortis.json, yeah, monolith is now saved in there. Okay. So it's just a misunderstanding of how the idea here is that the overall game state may be a lot larger than the individual board state. And so if I'm in an idle situation here, all I want to save is the board state changes in this situation, because like if I move a bunch of things around and I reorganize my board and then I'm like, oh, I gotta go, right? I want those to be persisted. But things like artifacts, like you can't acquire those in the way that I'm doing it as a debug operation, which is just like add the artifact during this idle state. So it's not necessary to gather up all of the artifact state and also update that when I'm just moving things around the board. Now, that may have just been like that's probably a premature optimization. I probably should have just saved the entire game state anytime anything changes, but anyway, I'm curious to see if this is going to work now. Okay, it did work. Cool. Okay, so what I'm going to do here, add artifact monolith. So basically, I just was misunderstanding how my save system works, I guess. So skip that. That will trigger a save when I go back to the main idle state. Now, this second monolith has not placed anything on the board yet. So if I restart, and then I move this out. Hey, there we go. Look at that. And then that should be good. All right, cool. Let's just make sure that this is really nice and buttoned up. Okay. Programming is not boring to me when I'm on challenge and all. Oops. Add artifact. I just want to get that monolith up there. But yeah, repetitive work and less evolving things can be boring. In the .NET build, you can export normally to iOS. Yeah, I believe so. I believe so. Why do you think programmers rewrite what already exists over again? Yeah, I think it's perfectionism. I think, you know, it's like, I mean, I think the experience among programmers who are particularly interested in programming is that there's always this desire to do things in a more clean, more straightforward, more elegant way, with elegant being a combination of the fewest necessary parts. So making a solution that's compact, that is very robust to error or fault tolerant, and is easy to understand, right? Like elegance kind of incorporates those three different characteristics of the code, I guess. And the problem is, like, there's always something you can do to improve at least one of those characteristics, right? Like, you can make it clearer to read. You can make it easier to extend, to modify. You can make it more fault tolerant. You can make it more compact, right? And so I think that's why there's kind of like a driving force to like rewrite systems to be more beautiful, for lack of a better word. But I think that's only really an impulse among people who genuinely enjoy, like, quote unquote, the craft, for lack of a better word. People who enjoy just like creating beautiful code are going to do that a lot. So yeah, I think that's it. I put everything in the debug log, even if it doesn't give me any new information. It usually just helps me think. Yeah. Okay, so I've added the monolith. It's saved. I go back in. That should restore my artifact state. And then, yeah, that's restored there. Oh, the problem, though, is that it's going to place another monolith, I think, because it hasn't saved that state. Yeah. So I think I do need to gather up the artifact state when the board changes. So that's going to need to be a change that I make here. Okay. Okay, I think I can just move this gather artifacts into this gather non-map state. So basically this is the list of everything that changes when the board changes. So this is like the minimal set. And then this one, I mean, I don't really see a reason to split these up anymore, but maybe it's okay. All right. So add item jewel, add artifact monolith. So now it should be saving. So if I do this and I leave and I come back, that should be saved now. Okay. And then if I move this out and then I close it, it shouldn't add another monolith here. Perfect. All right. Goodness gracious. That was quite an adventure. All right. All right. They also rewrite because existing thing doesn't always fit what they're trying to do with it. Yeah. There's an impulse too, like, you know, if you get newly hired onto a company, for example, a lot of new hires will come in and say like, this system is completely broken and it needs to be rewritten. And then like everyone on the team will be like, yeah, we know, but it hasn't been rewritten because of like all this complexity you're not aware of. So I don't know, there's this impulse too, like when you come across something new, it's like you want to idealize it. You want to be like, oh, I could do this better, or this could be better, or whatever. And then you come to find out in most cases that actually it's that way because it's just inherently complex, or it's going to take 6 months to rewrite the service and like the company doesn't have time for that. So it's one of those impulses where it's like, I think it's a good impulse to want to make the code better, but also like if you indulge that impulse too much, you could actually be counterproductive. So it's one of those weird things where like you just kind of have to be a little bit measured in it, because there's a lot of parts of Alchemortis where I'm like, man, I would love to rewrite this system and like make it more simple and everything. But the problem is like as the game's complexity is increasing, there are more cases to handle, and also I need to actually get the game out. So I can't just be spending all my time every day like rewriting systems so that at the end it's like, oh, it's much cleaner, but it's like functionally the same, right? So it's a balance, but you know, I think it's one of those things where you just kind of have to be prudent about it. If I have to rewrite the code, it's because I was too lazy to write it right the first time. Usually I know why I'm writing and set up the right structure from the start, so I don't have to deal with it later on. I think in more controlled environments, that's easier to do. Like in a professional environment where like, here are the specifications, you can build it to spec. The problem with a game is that a game changes so much during the course of development that you could have written the code correctly for the initial idea you had for the game, but then the game changes so much that that code is no longer really fitting the current vision. So yeah, ideally you would write it right or write it correctly from the first instant, but the problem is like the software, the application, the game actually changes in terms of its requirements and its spec over time. And so the system that you built ideally in the first month of development may actually just be a whole mess now in the 9th month of development, right? In some cases, it reminds me of writing an essay, why something someone has millions of times is bad, or explaining the definition of a word programming term. Yeah. Okay, I'm not quite done with this because I need to add a description to the monolith now. But I'm going to take a quick 3-minute break. When I come back, we'll write this description, and then I have a to-do that I want to address, which is, ironically enough, some code improvement that I want to make that doesn't need to be made, but I'm going to make it anyway. And yeah, we'll see how long that takes. In my world, they copy paste code from one site to another and tack on more features to the point that bloat becomes impossible to understand. It's the human version of vibe coding. Anyway, I'll be right back in 3 minutes and we'll continue on. All right, let's figure out how to word this monolith. So the other thing too is like okay. This cat is sitting behind me just meowing nonstop. Can you meow for the camera? Go ahead, meow. Go ahead, do it. Do it. Oh, now you're quiet? Go. Nope. Okay. So I think with the monolith, I think this one, I'm going to leave it a little bit of a mystery, I think, for two reasons. One, it's going to be hard to describe what the immovable monolith actually does. But two, it's like, I kind of want it to be a situation where the player is looking at it and going like, why would I ever take this? This is just going to add an immovable card to my board. Like, why would I do that? I'm going to leave it up to the brave players who take this artifact to figure out that, oh, actually the immovable monolith is like, while it's immovable and it kind of like presents a problem, it's actually really powerful, like the item that it puts there, right? So I think I'm just gonna say adds an immovable monolith item to your board. Adds an immovable monolith item to a random free space on the combat board. Maybe that's it. Maybe we'll just leave it like that. Let the players discover what it does. Cat is why we are still here, just to suffer. Yeah. Now there needs to be an item with an unstoppable force. Yeah. The cat is hovering. Are you hovering? Are you hovering around? You want to come back up? Okay. Hi. Hi. Can I help you? Can I help you? I'm working. Okay. All right. I think that's probably fine. Adds an immovable monolith item to a random free space on the combat board. Yeah, I think that'll work. All right, let's just see what that looks like in the game, the description. But I think we can mark this one as done. Adds an immovable monolith item to a free space on the combat board. Cool. That's super cool. I like it. All right. All right. Actually, I wonder... I gave it a high turn cooldown, but maybe I won't do that. I'll give it a 3-second turn cooldown. Because it could be a target for projected abilities, and so if it executes quickly... Yeah. Okay, anyway. Early non-tag abilities. Okay. So this, I created some specific classes for handling the order in which passive abilities are updated. So tag modifier... So anywhere where this is being referenced, this needs to be a new early non-combat composed ability. This one needs to be new early non-combat composed ability. And this is a new early non-combat composed ability. Okay. So now this can be apply early non-combat abilities. And we don't need that check anymore. Okay. Apply tag modifications. No, I don't need that anymore, I don't think. I don't think I need this. Get rid of this. This just becomes that. So we do early, non-combat, passively projected, and then late non-combat abilities with this filter removed. Okay, is that correct? Passive projected composed abilities, yes. Apply non-combat abilities. Okay, so apply late, apply early. Let's reorder this. I'm just going to make it match the order in which it's called, just for clarity. I think that's right. Early non-combat passive. Early non-combat passive late. Okay. Cool. All right, now we got to check if that actually works. Let's just ignore the save file. I don't need that anymore. Okay. Add item acolyte. Projects the ritual tag to adjacent allied items. Oh, that's already a ritual item. Okay, so that's ritual now. What scales off of? I need to change my board size. Should have kept that on, I suppose. If there's an adjacent alchemical item, now I'm forgetting what cards synergize together such that I can test it. Shoot. Do I really not have? Let's see. Huh? I'm trying to figure out. Oh, passive copies up to 1 of poison. No, that's not right. I'm trying to find something. I'm trying to establish a chain of updates. So I might need to just change something. Projects to items that are both left adjacent or right adjacent. Oh, I shouldn't be updating that, I guess. Let's see. All right, let's do this instead. Okay. Which one was I looking at? Passive. There was one that I was at. Oh, here. Skeleton Commander. Let's just change the Skeleton Commander. We're going to change this to minion secondary tag dot none. And I think the cultist, does the cultist projects the minion tag? Yes. Okay. So I'm just trying to make sure that all this stuff is happening in the correct order. So the idea is that if the cultist, so if I add a cultist, and I do this, and I project the minion tag onto the candle, oh, to allied items above. So I project a minion tag onto the candle. That's a 3.7 second cooldown. Then if I add item skeleton commander, this should target the minion. So it should be 3.2 seconds. Yeah, that's right. So do you see how that's working? So this candle is being projected in the minion tag, which is then being affected by the skeleton commander here. Now we need to make sure that that happens irrespective of the order as well. So if I put this over here, it's the same deal. Okay. So I just want to make sure that chain works, because the way that the non-combat, the passive ability state update works is it has to go in order, right? So the default execution order of cards is from top down and left right. So it goes down the first column and then it goes down the second column. Whatever a card appears in that cell is what gets executed first. So in this case, what's happening is that when I change the board state, the skeleton commander has a passive ability that needs to be updated. The cultist has a passive ability that needs to be updated. And then the candle is just like a recipient of both of those things, right? So if I just applied it straight in order, if I said reduce the cooldown of adjacent allied minion items by 0.5 seconds, by the time this skeleton commander executes, this does not yet have the minion tag, right? And so that's why I need to do these things in chunked stages. So that's why I've broken this up into several loops, right? We have early non-combat abilities. Those are the combat abilities that get processed first. And we have the regular non-combat abilities. Those are the abilities that get processed in the default sort of order, right? And then we have a passively projected abilities. These are abilities that are passively projected that need to be added to the card. And then we have the late non-combat abilities. These are the things that are passive abilities that will execute at the end. And so that's kind of like how I'm controlling the execution order of these abilities to make sure that everything is set up correctly. So what we end up with is a situation where this cooldown reduction passive on the skeleton commander is a late non-combat ability. So that means that it will apply after the tag projections have happened and anything else has happened. And so that's how I'm getting the ordering to work. So I don't really know of a different approach than that. I think it's just a matter of like, you kind of have to make sure that all the abilities execute in the right order so that by the time an ability like the skeleton commander ability is affecting an item, that item has all the tags and data and abilities that it's going to have before it applies that, right? I think the other way to do it, like there's a way to do like a convergence algorithm, which is basically like you keep iterating until nothing is changing anymore. But I don't think I need to get to that state. I mean, I think if I had more complex state, maybe that would be necessary, but I don't think so. So anyway, I think that's working. So I'm going to make sure to undo the skeleton commander change that I did, because that was just for testing. Should probably try the tag enchant, although I can't add tag enchants through my my cheat helper, but I think it's probably all right. Okay, anyway. I swear, watching how you organize this project makes me want to cry, not because you're doing a bad job, but because I realize I need to get to work on this too instead of just sitting around doing nothing. However, my lazy thinks it's better to write a plugin that sorts the whole project on its own because it's an interesting and not exactly easy task. Honestly, I don't know what to do with myself in situations like this. Yeah, I mean, it kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier, where it's like, sometimes you just do things for the love of the game, right? Sometimes making the tool is more interesting than making the game. And I think that's fine. It's like, but it may not be fine, right? Because it depends on your goals. If your goal is to get serious and release a game on Steam, then yeah, you have to be very careful about going on tangents like that, right? And I'm guilty of this too. Like, I go on tangents all the time when maybe my time would be better served when my time would be better served like actually making progress on the core game. But at the same time, you know, it's like, what's the point of doing this if you're not going to enjoy it, right? Like, and if the enjoyment comes from going on tangents every so often, or like spending a day writing a tool or whatever, it's like, you know, everything's a balance. Everything's a balance. But yeah, I understand what you mean. Hello, Aztec Warlord. Are any of your games on mobile? No, I don't think so. No. I remember Swordslinger. I was going to try to put Swordslinger on mobile, but I decided not to, probably because it just didn't do that well on Steam anyway, which I don't know. It might be kind of fun. You know what I might do for a Patreon video? I might play through Swordslinger for a Patreon. That would be kind of fun. That would be kind of fun. I'm going to do that. Whoa, cat. Whoa. So if you want to see me play through one of my old games, Swordslinger, you're going to have to be a Patreon subscriber for that. Yeah, that would be fun to do, actually, because I haven't played that game in a long time, and it would be interesting for me to, like, just kind of reflect on everything. Anyway. Okay, I think the game is in pretty good shape. So again, I'm trying to work through this to-do list. This is basically the last stuff that I need to do to get playtest ready for the next playtest. I also need to playtest the game because I haven't really playtested it myself with all the changes, so I need to do that. Swordslinger was a pretty fun game. I'm glad you liked it, Ninja Link. It's definitely like rough around the edges. I think I could have done more with it, but I think that game only took me like 4 or 5 months to make. So it's, it is what it is, I suppose. Well, I guess that will probably be it for the stream unless anyone has any final questions. I guess I have a few minutes, so if anyone wants to ask a question about the project or anything, I'll stick around for a couple of minutes. Otherwise, there's nothing else that I really want to get started on the stream here. So I need to figure out how to rework the confuse. That's a big one. So I've been trying to think of like how to do that. One of the things I was thinking of a confuse, instead of making the confuse debuff just apply automatically, what I might do is I might like do a stacks of confuse. And then like once you hit 100 stacks of confuse on an item, it gains the confuse status. So it's almost like you have to build up that debuff before it has any effect. But I'm just not so sure how compelling that will be, because if you've got one confuse item on your board and there are like 15 items on the enemy board and it's choosing a random target every time, it's like you're not really going to get any use out of that, right? Like that only really fixes the problem of like if you've got a confuse build that's just like designed to confuse as many things as possible. So I don't know. I need to think about that a lot. Confuse debuff. How is this actually working? Oh, it checks if it has the confuse debuff and then it just changes its target to itself, right? Do I like ice cream? Yes, I do. Who doesn't? All right, well, that's going to be it for the stream today. Thank you all for watching. Thank you for being here. If you are interested, you could check out Alchemortis on Steam. I should have a new trailer up here very shortly, and then the Steam page will be overhauled in its entirety. But thank you all for watching. Thank you for being here. Very much appreciated. Thank you all for everyone who's supporting on Patreon. And for all of you who will potentially support on Patreon, it's very much appreciated. Why not just make it a 50-50 deal? Maybe make it so that instead of the enemy doing flat damage, it does a percentage of current health with a minimum amount. Yeah, that could work. Yeah, that could potentially work. Or, yeah, or confuse could just be, it could just be flat damage, right? So it could just be like, the confused item, and maybe it doesn't even prevent the damage from happening. It's just like it damages itself like by a flat amount, right? So every time a confused item executes, instead of hijacking the damage that it was going to do, it just does like 5 damage to itself or something. And then that could scale maybe with the tier of the confuse or something like that. Maybe that would be better. Because I think part of the reason why confuse is a little bit too strong right now is that it's both defensive and offensive, right? So like, not only is the enemy damaging themselves equal to the damage that they would have done to you, but they're not damaging you either, right? So it's like, it's basically just like this offensive option that also makes you immune to damage if you apply enough of it in effect, right? So maybe just moving to like a flat, maybe not percentage based, because I could still see that being very strong as well. But I'm thinking of maybe like a flat like 5 damage or something without hijacking the damage. So the enemy will still deal damage to you, but then it will deal damage to itself as well. Or it could reduce the damage dealt. So it could say deals up to 5 self-damage and removes that from the damage it would have done to you. Something like that. Maybe. But I think maybe going to a flat damage route is probably better. Okay. Anyway, thanks everyone. Thank you for your support. It means the world to me. And yeah, gonna keep working hard to get Alchemortis out this year so you can all play it. And yeah, have a good one. I'll see you in the next one tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern. Hope to see you there. And bye-bye for now.